Hello, is it worth looking at horses in the parade ring? Are certain jockeys better with certain horses? Would you always want the best jockey on any horse to boost? And they did.
They did. Was duly hoovered up with the full beans, full cherries, straight on that. Gallopin was just superb. I don't think he put a hoof wrong throughout the whole piece. It's now 3 Irish Gold Cups back to back.
The term muggy, basically, it's a dirty bet. We all know what an accumulator is. Probably most people do them on the football each weekend. You can do the same with horses. You just put multiple selections.
About 3 win-ups. I think after the second one, you get one for free, kind of thing. I'd say Hitman.
Flag another winner last night, thanks to the good old Stewards Enquiry. Stay tuned to our socials where the latest tips will be shared. And unfortunately, the one today didn't quite do as well, but we're still £8 up. A podcast to date from 16 selections.
Position. Any power at the last fly. He's down. Any power has gone, but in front of the last left. Melody Light.
The first time they're running up towards the finish, and he's mistaken the winning post. He's mistaken the winning post completely. Roger Lockwood and Hoyt for it.
From Archibald, Hardy used to defend his title, but Archibald is flattened out in second. Then in third, now right is beginning to move. He's drifting off the true line. He's fine. Now this must be become Surrey's the gun. Going to win his 4th Betfair Chase, and Cordo Star is still the king. Cordo Star wins.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tailed Off, episode number 4. This is a no-holds-barred podcast that dives headfirst into the wonderfully weird world of horse racing. For the curious newbies like me, or for those looking to sharpen their skills, we'll guide you through it all. As a reminder, I am the newbie, the racing idiot, but luckily I'm joined by Elle and Duncan, I'd say the pros, the experts. How you doing, guys?
Good day.
Not touching your face, Duncan.
You failed. You failed
Scratch
already.
my neck, does that count?
You good day? You had a good week so far?
Good day.
Yeah, ready to get stuck in.
Ready to get stuck in? All right, that got
Absolutely.
that face of like, hurry up. Okay, no small chat. So today we'll cover a few things. So we'll review the races. There's quite a few tips we had in the last weekend, and we had the Newbies NAP. So stay tuned to see how that turned out.
Still running.
Won't yeah, I think he's still on the race course.
I tailed off.
Literally tailed off. We've got some news. We've got some Stewards inquiries. Ellen Dunk will give you a Muggy Accumulator, whatever that is. That's on the agenda. And we'll do listeners' questions today. So we haven't got a deep dive topic, but there's quite a few questions that we want to cover. So we'll get into those. And then we'll look forward to the races this weekend, focusing on Newbury and Warwick. So let's get to P&L, shall we, first? How are we looking, Al?
Yeah, we're up. That is the main thing.
That's the main thing. We'll stop right there. There we go.
Yeah, thank you and good night.
We managed to blag another winner last night, thanks to the good old Stewards Enquiry. The first past the post absolutely butchered ours on the run-in, so we were rightfully instated as the winner.
So that's what you posted on Instagram, where they called it. What horse did they call first?
I can't even remember what the winner was. The other one was now. I know ours was Easter Icon, and that helped us prop up the P&L. So as we always say, stay tuned to our socials where the latest tips will be shared. And unfortunately, the one today didn't quite do as well, but we're still £8 up. A podcast to date from 16 selections. That's just to a £1 stake. So obviously, if you've had more on each time, you'll be even more up. So not a bad state of affairs so far.
Good returns. Hopefully that will continue to grow. I guess you're not counting the Newbies NAP in that one, are you?
No, these are just, we probably should say, we will obviously post, especially if we're at the races or watching it on TV, our kind of fancies for the big races. That's kind of separate to what we're tracking, which is the Trainers in Form model that we covered in our first episode.
Yeah, so this is just Trainers in Form. Yeah. Cool.
The system. And
go and watch that video if you haven't already, because go into quite a lot of detail in Trainers in Form, and it's quite enlightening. So, all right, let's have a look at the weekend gone by. We had a few on Sandown and Leopardstown. Should we start with Sandown? Duncan, do you want to crack on?
Yeah, so I think the one that we covered there was the Scilly Isles Novice Chase, the Grade 1 that was there on the day. I was all over, I think Elle was too, on Django Bay, so the Nicky Henderson horse. I thought even money was a bit of a gift, to be fair, when I saw that pop up. So a score went straight on that, which was not well invested, apparently, because, I thought I was quids in, coming down second last. Django absolutely pinged second last coming up the hill. Thought, here we go, no problem at all. He'll go away up the hill. Got to the last, and he almost kind of, I think it looked like the horse took an extra stride just before the last, and Nico was very much kind of like had the handbrake on going up to the last to try and steady him in, and he didn't wing it. But by no means was he down and out. He looked like he was going to then come through again and win. And Nico, in all his true glory, just wasn't good enough in the at the end. I just thought it was a pretty bad ride. If you had someone like Sean Bowen on there, or Harry Cobden, or
so you think it's a jockey?
Yeah, I just don't think like Nico's, for me, he's good on really good horses, but on horses that should potentially win, they need to almost have like £10 in hand for him to win on them, really.
Savage.
It's not David Maxwell, come on, that is a bit harsh.
Yeah. All right, maybe not 10, maybe 5. I just thought that the ride wasn't the best over the last day, in a head-to-head with, a better jockey like a Harry Cobden or Sean Bowen or someone like that. For me, he loses 9 times out of 10.
So where did Django finish?
He finished I think it was basically like a nose second. I think after the line, he then obviously I think he then overtook Handstands, so Ben Pauling's winner. But yeah, I just thought Nico's ride on him wasn't particularly great. So gutted about that.
Same from you?
Yeah, I was also. Yeah, we obviously put him up at the pod last week, and we also said about Handstand's got the more proven stamina. Fair play to his jockey. He put that to good use, so made it a strong test. He was in front most of the way and coming around the home turn was really pouring on the pressure. But as Duncan said, Django wing 2 out. You're thinking, here we go. Nico looks full of running. The other horse is kind of not flat out, but he's giving as good as he can, and he just waiting to come to the last. Nico's probably tried to save a bit for the running, as Duncan said. In doing so, the horse has got a little bit too tight to the last, so rather than jumping it on a full stride with the momentum, he's then had to check slightly, get over it as he can, but then you've still got a comfortable running at Sandown up the hill to go and do the business, and the horses were like smashed together, so they were getting in each other's way a little bit, and that's where the jockeys in the weighing room called Nico de Boyville noodle arms. That's a perfect example of why, because it's just all over the show, whereas you want noodle arms Nico. So basically he's got arms like fucking string, to be honest. Whereas you want a strong jockey to get the best out of the horse in the finish, and I was screaming at the TV because I just think he butchered that. That was a race he should have won. There wasn't a lot in it, but he should have got the job done. And I think Nico's had a bit of a pacing on this podcast already, but it's fully justified because he does frustrate punters when in the moment when you need him most, he does often let you down, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Maybe one, actually, I think I've got a question on Jockey, so I'll save my question for later. Leopardstown then, you had on the Irish Arkle, you had a few.
Yeah, so firstly, great weekend of racing in Ireland. As we build it on Thursday, the Dublin Racing Festival is a real great highlight pre-Christmas. Most of the Irish big guns will go there, which over this side of the country, at this side of the water in our country, they tend to save themselves for Cheltenham. So we had some massive clashes, and the first race we'll talk about in the Irish Arkle, which is, I suppose, their equivalent to the main race at Cheltenham. Liked Madgeborough, but thought he was too short. He went off 8 to 11, and Il Antique, who we put up around, I don't know, was he 5 to 2 at the time? He was back throughout the day, and I basically fancied him to just go out from the front, put the jolly under pressure, because one thing we know about Madgeborough from his first start of offence is he's not the best jumper of an obstacle. But as we saw on Saturday, he's clearly got a hell of an engine. And what was really disappointing, a few willies, because obviously he's got so many darts, as we said last week, to throw at these races. If he misses with one, he's got another one ready to go. So you kind of feel like he's not had a bad weekend. In fact, he won 6 of the 8 grade 1s. Didn't quite do the clean sweep, but wasn't a bad haul. And there was a few horses that really bombed, and this was one of them. Now, the ground definitely wasn't as soft as he would have liked, but I can't say that's an excuse, because he just couldn't live with Madgeborough. Madgeborough pretty much made all the running, which I didn't expect. And as I say, one thing I'd worry about for Cheltenham is definitely his jumping. At the last, he was a lot better and straighter. But to be honest, when a horse has got that sort of engine, they can get away with it. And he took it up such a long way out, and he basically had the race at his mercy and could jump the last comfortably. And I think what the good thing that's come out of that race is he is now a really worthy adversary to Sergino, who we'll talk about coming up this weekend. And he's only around 9 to 4 for the Arkle. But basically, the jumping for me would make me worry for that race against a hot pot like Sergino. But yeah, in summary, disappointed with Il Antique, but take nothing away from Madgeborough. He did the job nicely.
So you think a doubt then, Antique, for Cheltenham? Like, you probably wouldn't be on your top?
Yeah, I wonder whether he'll even go to the race. But he's owned by Tony Bloom, who owns Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club. So if you ever see those blue and white colours on the racetrack, that's who that is. Yeah. He's a big punter as well, so I can imagine he probably wants a runner at Cheltenham. So he might turn up anyway. But I wouldn't back him with your money for that race at the minute.
Yeah, okay. Let's move on then to the next one. Leopardstown again. So this is the Irish Gold Cup Chase, old GDC.
Yeah, race I think we were both pretty excited about and looking forward to.
You predicted that they come up with a super boost, and they did.
They did. Yeah, so yeah, that was duly hoovered up with the full beans, full cherries straight on that. So yeah, I mean Gallopin was just superb. I don't think he put a hoof wrong throughout the whole piece. It's now 3 Irish Gold Cups back to back, and he'll obviously be going again in Cheltenham for a 3rd Gold Cup in Cheltenham back to back, which would be. I personally just don't see anything beating him. They've talked about Factifile going against him in the Gold Cup, but they've tried now different tactics with this horse a couple of times, and neither time has worked. The only time it has worked to start off with is because I'd say it was Gallopin's first run of the season earlier on this season. But since then, it's just been domination from Gallopin des Champs, and I just don't see Factifile 1 staying the Gold Cup distance, and he just won't beat Gallopin at all over that.
Why is he so good? Why is GDC so good?
That's a good question. He's good. He's going to try and emulate Best Mate, who was the last horse to win 3 Gold Cups. Absolute hero of a horse, and the only previous one before that was Arkle, going back to the sort of, it just shows the level of horse you need to be able to achieve that sort of thing. I was listening to a podcast the Timeform representative were on earlier, and they were saying that he's had 16 races over fences now. In 14 of those races, he's achieved a rating of over 165, and we talked about the ratings on a previous podcast. So anything over 160,
if you don't know what the ratings mean.
Exactly. Anything over 165, they determine as a kind of top quality performance, and he's done it 14 out of 16 times, which is basically shows the consistency. That's what makes him so good. He's now 3rd in the list of all-time chasers to have got to that many. Quarter Star leads the way at 20, which is one of the best horses ever. What makes him so good is that he's able to consistently perform at that level, whereas a lot of horses you'll see over the time, they can come up for one big performance, maybe win a Gold Cup, maybe win a Champion Chase, win a Grand National, but then that's it, they're kind of peaked and they'll go away. And one thing that I suppose Willie's been able to do really well is keep the horse as sound as possible to keep banging in those massive performances, which a lot of horses can't do. One thing that I noticed on the big race on Saturday was that Paul Townend probably kept quite a bit back with the horse this time, because if you watch his win over Christmas and in the race last year, we know he's got good stamina, so he tends to utilise that and steamroll from the front. But if the petrol gauge is at sort of 25% and you go right down to the bottom, that horse is going to take much longer to recover, and Cheltenham's only 5 weeks away. So I thought basically he might not looked as visually impressive, but as soon as they got over the last, when the horses were starting to come to him, he just found plenty.
Do you think they were holding something back then? That's interesting.
Yeah, saving it for the big race.
5 weeks is quite a long time though to recover. Surely you can empty the tank.
Yeah, but I'd say you only want to empty the tank. I mean, you're getting down to sort of 20-25% left. That's good enough to win most races. Yeah. If you go to flat out, you only want to do that at Cheltenham, because then that's your season highlight. Yeah, because the horse will take a lot of time to recover from really being asked to run its maximum.
Especially over that distance as well. I think he's running over 3 miles. And like you say, he probably won't be fully tuned up. Like, he would have been fairly well tuned up, maybe at 90%, but they'll still be finding another 10% in there, because the race at Cheltenham is over further, and it's probably even more gruelling. So they'll go a hell of a gallop in the Gold Cup. Right. So my only other note would be I would send Factifile not to the Gold Cup. I'd send him to the Ryanair, which is over 2.5 miles, which I think would be a better trip for him.
He's now 2-1 favourite for that race.
He's even shorter than that, I think. The Ryanair's the 2.5 mile chase, so 2 mile 4 furlong chase. He's at the top of the market, even though he's been talked about going to the Gold Cup, but he seems to be shortening on the Ryanair side. So people are obviously taking the chance that maybe that they think the same as we do, and the fact that there's no point in going up against Gallopin des Champs in the Gold Cup. So let's send him to a different race where they're pretty much guaranteed that they'll win it if he does go there. So it could be if you go on, there's a market you can go on called the non-runner no bet market, which I think Elliot talked about during our anti-post pod we did the other week, and it's short. It'll be shorter odds, but if your horse doesn't run that you've picked in a specific race, then you get your money back. So I think you probably get better than even money. I think it might be 6-4, maybe slightly better around a factor file. But I would say it's worth backing factor file for that Ryanair, because you get your money back if he doesn't go there. But you think if he's declared there, he will be odds on. I'd be confident of that.
We carry on with Leopardstown.
The 2 mile Irish novice hurdle, the grade 1. So this is the one that I flagged up last week that Warren Greattricks had made a comment about his horse. The horse is called Good and Clever. So shout out to our resident man. What's his name, El? I can't even think of his name. Mark, that's it, Mark.
Mark. He's still waiting for it.
Yeah.
He's on the edge of his seat.
Thanks, Mark, for calling me out on the chat and sending me pelters on that.
As a reminder, Duncan said, I've got a really good pick, but I've just forgotten the name. I'll get back to you.
I described it. It was like Pictionary. I was just trying to describe it as best as I could without actually giving the name away. But yeah, he finished third in the race in the grade 1 there, which, again, Willie Mullins hosed up in. But he came third at 16-1, so it wasn't a bad each way.
Good each way.
The winner co-picked the boards. I have not been as impressed by a novice hurdle in as many years as I can remember. That was sensational. I was listening to some of the Irish coverage, and it sounded like he did everything wrong before the race. He's quite a buzzy horse. You know, he got sweating profusely. He was jig-jogging around the paddock and just looked all at sea, and then was keen as mustard through the race. So you think he's expended all that energy, and he's gone off like the bloody clappers. You think, surely you can't sustain this, but he just kept going and kept going and kept going, and absolutely walloped them. And it's the first race on the Tuesday, the Supreme Novice Hurdle. You obviously don't want to get stuck in and leave your Cheltenham behind if it pulls it up. But I can already sense I'm going to have a massive bout.
You're going to be in a hole.
I'm going to either be a king or a pauper after the first race. And apparently only Altior this century has gone into that race with a higher rating than this horse at the minute. So he's up there.
So that's one for the list for Cheltenham then.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue then, Elle, on the Ladbrokes Dublin Chase?
Yeah, so this was another kind of race we were really hotly anticipating because it was quite a competitive field. Obviously, we put up Al Fabiolo off his massive layoff and kind of thinking, well, he's got the back class, so we put him at 8-1, and then all started getting giddy when, what was he into, about 2-1 on the off, Duncan?
Something like that.
Oh, wow, seriously, back.
Yeah, and I thought, well, that's good. You know, the market confidence behind him, he must be tuned up, ready to go. And then he got as far as the second fence and tipped over. So that was good. Thing is, he is notoriously quite a bad jumper, and it's more that he just doesn't respect the fences in a weird way. He kind of just, I can just do what I want and I'll get from A to B. So when he made mistakes at Cheltenham, he didn't actually fall. Paul pulled him up, but this was the first time he's fallen, and you could argue that maybe that's going to knock some sense into him. Obviously, you don't want a horse to fall, but you know, once they've gone through that and realised, I do actually have to jump this. I can't just sort of clamber over it in my own time. It might help improve him, but you know, you wouldn't fancy him. I think Willie's going to have to now try and squeeze him into a race somewhere between now and Cheltenham if he's got any chance of running a big race in the Champion Chase. And this was just all about Solness. We flagged it up on the podcast that we thought maybe it was a bit harsh. He'd stole the race at Christmas because he'd just gone off quite hard and he was quite a big prize. So a lot of the jockeys in behind were guilty of thinking, well, he's a no-hoper. I don't have to waste energy chasing him. A bit like cycling, if someone kicks and it's Matt Connor, you think, he'll come back.
He always does.
He's goosed. But literally the same thing happened again. Coming past around the stands, he went and took it up and went quickly about 20 lengths clear. And the jockeys in behind were all like, don't need to worry about this. And it's like, yeah, but he did the same at Christmas, and he made you all look stupid. And I think a lot of them will look stupid again. To be honest. Now, there's a massive argument on Twitter about this, whether the jockeys were stupid to leave him, or actually he just rode an amazing race and he went harder than they could live with. I would ask the question that they didn't probably try to close the gap. They were praying that he fell into a hole. The only horse that got within touching distance was Marie Nationale, who, I have to say, fair play, I did slag him on the pod last week, but he showed a lot more than we've seen lately from him. And he came to him, you just saw him creeping through, and you thought he'd come to him at the last fence, and you think, here we go, you might do this. And Solness, having absolutely gassed it from the front for most of the race, you think he's going to fold. And he then pulled out more, and on the running, he was kind of pulling away a bit. So I would say credit where it's due. Solness has surprised us all again. You have to take him seriously now. We spoke about Illilantique bombing in that race earlier. I think Gaelic Warrior was a similar story. Apparently the ground was a bit quick for him, which you can maybe understand, but even if it was a bit quick for him, he never got into the race at all. And, you know, there's questions now whether he might go out in trip for the Ryanair. I backed him anti-post a few weeks ago for this champion chase. I've already cashed that out. So that says what I think about that. Yeah, in summary, it was a good race. Some of the jockeys in behind didn't cover themselves in glory. And take your hat off to Solness for doing it again.
Yeah, nice. Duncan, anything to add on that?
No, I think El summarised it pretty well. Fair play to Danny Mullins. I personally think the jockey tactics were all wrong. Just leaving him out front 20 lengths clear. You just can't do that. You can't do that. But like I say, fair play to Solness, and I was panicking thinking Marie National was going to get up when they came to the last, because I thought he's reeling him in. What have we said on the pod? And thank God Solness pulled out a bit more. So, I mean, I would be either in each way in the champion chase. I think Solness is currently 12s. I don't think that's a bad bet at all. I think that's
disrespectful, really, isn't it?
I think so. I think that's massively underestimating what he can do. Considering what he's done now the last twice.
Twice, yeah.
I would have to also retract my disparaging comments about Sligo Racecourse in the last week. Pat Rooney was not happy with me at all, and clearly it's producing champion horses. So what do I know? And up the Sligo.
Yeah, full respect for calling him out there, Pat. Thank you for that. All right then, Lossiemouth. Let's talk about Champion Hurdle. Duncan, you had Lossiemouth, didn't you, last week? You were talking about him.
Yeah, I think we were both saying I think the key to that race was going to be, because obviously Lossiemouth and Stateman both come from William Mullins' stable, and there was no guarantee as to which one the stable jockey Paul would be riding. So the question was who's he going to ride, who's he going to pick, and as it turned out, Paul Hanlon went for Stateman in the end, which proved to be telling. I think we both said Stateman was the pick of them because of the price alone. Lossiemouth was odds on. Stateman was, I think, when we flagged up the pod, it was 7-4, and it was gutting the fact that the race panned out the way it did, because the two of them pulled miles clear of the other three in the race, and then Lossiemouth kind of just fell through one of the hurdles on the back straight, completely arse over tit. Nearly took Stateman out as well. I thought the horse was in. Right trouble. I thought it was a really big injury when I first saw it, and thank God the horse got up okay, as did Danny Mullins. So I think we were just denied what could have potentially been a very exciting kind of end to the race, which then Stateman just walked in, and it really didn't tell you anything about it, because Stateman had two pretty average to very below standard runs previous to that, come into the race with all to prove, and in the end didn't really prove anything. Yeah, you kind of left it. I think as Paul Townend said afterwards when he was interviewed, we've kind of come away with more questions than we started with.
Clear. Fish to there, he went to Fog Daddy. Lossiemouth down and almost brought down Stateman.
Based on that, though, would you still look at Lossiemouth for Cheltenham?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was expecting Lossiemouth would go to the mares instead. So I think she was aimed originally at the Champion Hurdle, which is her owner Rich Ritchie's kind of choice thing. He's absolutely fantastic owner. If you ever get to kind of see him in interviews, he's brilliant. He's very much adamant that he wants to still go down the Champion Hurdle route and take on Stateman and also Constitution Hill. Fair play to him for doing it. Just thought that if they wanted a winner, the best chance would be in the mares. But yeah, no, they're going down the route of potentially the Champion Hurdle still. So good luck to them.
Just say that I thought, again, difference of opinion on this one. Once Lossiemouth had unfortunately tipped up, I thought Stateman was gassed, and he had such an advantage because they'd gone so hard from the gates that it looked like Paul was kind of struggling to keep him up to that gallop, and he had such an advantage he could kind of coast home. And I thought he was already nudging him along to try and keep up with Lossiemouth before she departed. Now that's just my own opinion, and might be proven wrong, but as Duncan said, Stateman has not performed this season. Now he clearly was performing better than he has done this season, but they'd gone pretty hard, and to be honest, I think if the others were a bit closer, Daddy Longlegs could have caused them a bit of a shock towards the end. I certainly wouldn't be going anywhere near Stateman for the champion. we did some digging on some stats in terms of horses in the big races at Cheltenham that have fallen on their previous start, because there is a pretty poor record. And for Grade 1s, for example, out of 70 runners since the start of the century, only 3 horses have managed to win following a fall on their previous start, which is obviously only 4%. So that definitely is a concern for Lossiemouth, for all that you kind of feel like there's so much more to come from her. We just haven't had a chance to see it. So,
It's a shame.
yeah, I think they should still run him in the champion hurdle because I think Brighter Days Ahead in the mares is arguably going to be a tough nut to crack. And hopefully she puts it all together and she runs the best race of the season at Cheltenham.
Arguably, you say it's looking a bit more favourable for Constitution Hill. More than it was. And it
I
already
think
was.
even if Lossiemouth had won, I still don't think Constitution Hill will get beaten.
Yeah.
Just
Claim.
don't see it.
Claim.
Shout out to Lee Thurston as well for those stats
Yeah.
on the fallers at
Cheers,
Cheltenham. He's done wonders to get us those, so thank you for that.
Right, Newbies NAP. I had a go at picking a horse last weekend. Now, it's based on a few things, such as the ground, because it's quite heavy. It was based on, obviously, I think one at that distance on that ground had some good form. So, yeah, it had all the criteria. Even Duncan and L put some money on it, I think. And, yeah, it definitely tailed off, didn't it? Did it even finish?
It did finish, but it was tailed off.
Yeah, okay. I sort of turned it off when I saw it go out the back. So, yeah,
Well, you can only do better from here, mate.
Exactly.
well, yes, but what's the learning from that?
I don't
well-
think you did anything wrong.
No, I think the process was right. You just picked
Yeah.
the wrong horse, and
Trust
you
the
can't win
process.
every race. Like, you genuinely can't win every race.
It's a competitive handicap as well, so
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
you're never going to. If you were winning them every single time you put a thing in, then bloody hell, you'd be a guru. You'd be better than anyone out there
That's
tipping.
for sure.
So yeah,
Trust the process.
Trust the
exactly.
process. All right, remember that. All right, cheers, guys. Thanks for the reviews. Lots going on last weekend, actually. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to Cheltenham now. I feel like I'm well informed now after being on this podcast. So, that's good. Right, let's look at the news then. So, El,
Yeah, so I suppose the headline for this news section is Grand National entries came out last week.
nice.
We haven't even got Cheltenham out of the way, and we're already talking about the Grand National. But there's 90 in total. A decent entry stage. But I suppose
90.
yes, and they used to be 40 in the field, but they've annoyingly reduced it down to 34. So even less chance for those horses to get in. It's a race that's been dominated by the Irish in recent times, like all the races, and they had last year like 65% of the entries, let alone the final field. But that has reduced, so the Irish number of entries reduced by 13, and coincidentally, the Elliott and Willie Mullins entry also dropped by 13. So the fact that the Irish have only got 53% of the entries versus 65% last year is pretty much because I think Mullins and Elliott are probably being a bit cleverer with the horses they target for the race. So
And
I
when you're
wouldn't really.
saying Mullins and Elliott, you're not talking about yourself in the third person.
No, I'm talking about Gordon Elliott, the trainer, but with a 2T as opposed to the 1.
TT, oh, God.
So we'll hopefully put up the image, just because I like to laugh at Paul Nicholls occasionally. He's got 5 horses entered this year. Now, obviously, previously you'd go into the Grand National and think, right, who's the top trainer? Nicky Henderson, Willie Mullins, Paul Nicholls, and you think, well, I want to be on one of their horses, but he hasn't even had a runner since 21, and his record in the last 10 years has more horses pulled up than with numbers next to their name. So, the fact that he's aiming 5 at the race this year is probably in more wishful thinking than anything you should be taking too seriously.
Question, have you ever had a winner on the Grand National?
Oh yes.
Have you?
Oh yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I had probably my biggest ever single win was on Manila Times in 2021. So when it was behind closed doors, I think.
JP.
Annoyingly. I luckily listened to a podcast in like the February of that year, and the trainer Henry de Bromhead just said, "Oh, we're probably going to have a look at the National." So I looked down the list and I couldn't find this horse, and it was 50-1. Or was it 40 or 50-1? So I just ended up having a 20. I think I had like a 20 quid each way bet or 10 quid each way bet on it.
Only just.
And
Just 20.
not only did it run, it ended up winning the bloody thing. So that was a
Well,
touch.
that goes back to the point. If you're gonna go for an outsider like that,
Yeah.
it's all right to push your boundaries a little bit in terms of what stake you're gonna put on, because then when it does
Yeah.
come in,
Other just snippet on the news was just sad news that Jerry Colomb, who has only been seen once a season when he was really laboured on his reappearance at Down Royal, Elliot said he's just not been pleasing him, so he hasn't been running. Was all about Cheltenham. He is now fully ruled out for the season. He's had another setback, so no Jerry Colomb in the Gold Cup.
shame. All right, Muggy Accumulator.
So to explain for the layman what the term muggy means, so basically it's what, in other words, it's a dirty bet. So we all know what an accumulator is. Probably most people do them on the football each weekend. Obviously you can do the same with horses. You just put multiple selections in one bet, and it's either called a multiple or an accumulator, or an ACCA for short. And the fact that it's muggy is because every year around this time, especially when you've had a big weekend like the Dublin Race Festival, most of the trials are now kind of done and dusted for Cheltenham. and you kind of know who are the top horses for each race. And as we've seen over more recent years, there's more and more winning favourites and even more kind of odds-on favourites winning at Cheltenham. So backing them individually, you think, well, you know, what you're going to do, have 100 quid a time? Or you could be really muggy and put them all in a 4 or 5 fold and pray to God that they all come in. So what we thought,
You're the mug?
no, I think it's muggy because it's probably muggy because multiplying bad value times 5 is probably the quick way to the poorhouse, because the law of averages, 5 favourites winning is probably quite slim compared to the price that you're going to get. So we thought, now that the main races are done, everyone loves a Muggy Acca. Duncan and I have had a go at putting one up for the festival.
So we've listed out then the top 10 anti-post favourites based on the last couple of weekends of racing. And then El, you've got one Aki, and then you've got one Duncan. So El, what's yours then?
Yeah, so it's quite helpful to have that top 10 because that's basically, if you're going to do something really muggy and put all the favourites in, you're kind of picking from that list essentially. And I know most people would be looking at Constitution Hill. I still have a fear that we haven't probably seen him truly tested this season, certainly not last time. Wow. But he's one of the shortest ones, you see, so I was kind of thinking maybe I'll try and dodge him. You've also got Brighter Days Ahead for the mares, but then there's that niggling doubt that she might run in the Champion Hurdle. And then there was kind of a couple of others. Factor 5 we spoke about might not run. John Bon is another one that most people will be putting in. For me, I just have this feeling. He's never obviously won at the festival. He's never really looked his best at Cheltenham, full stop. And I just feel like something is going to go and turn him over. Although I do like the horse, so I hope he wins. So what I've done for my 5, we spoke about Kopek de Boards earlier. That's the first race of the day, so I'll know pretty soon if I'm up or down or this bet is completely rubbished in the first race. But I was so impressed with him at 11-8. Gino, as we said, has got a strong opponent in Madgeborough. But I think that hopefully makes the price for Sergino a bit tastier at 8-11. Ballyburn we didn't talk about, and who won over the weekend in the Novice Chase at Dublin. I thought he was so impressive. He obviously won really easily at the Cheltenham Festival last year at 9-4. He's probably one of my stronger ones because of the price. Diupu in the Stayers Hurdle is next at 11-10. He is a horse I don't like, but you just can see him winning because there's nothing else in that race. So it kind of seems sensible to put him in. And then the champion of all champions, Gallopin de Champs, to get the job done in the Gold Cup, and that pays a smidgen, 42.99, smidgen short of 43-1 for my Muggy 5-fold.
All right, nice. I can just see you like being in and then the last.
Oh, don't.
All right, Mugsville for Duncan then, what have you got?
Yeah, so taking into account what Elle said about Constitution Hill and Bright Days Ahead, I thought I'd chuck them straight in the Acca. Sergino, first one in there. I just think that he's just going to be a bit of a class above Margeborough, jumping better, just slicker. Hopefully, I mean, he's obviously running this weekend, which we'll talk about later on, Newbury, but as long as he hoses up there, which I expect he will, the price will only get shorter. So Sergino, I think, Constitution Hill, regardless if he's been tested or not, I just don't think there's a horse out there that can test him, really. I just think he's just too good, far too good. So Constitution Hill for the Champion Hurdle. Brighter Days Ahead, simply for the fact that he actually hammered State Man last time out by 30 plus lengths, and it looks like their only real opponent who was supposed to potentially going there was Lossiemouth, but now it looks like Lossiemouth is now going the Champion Hurdle route. Based on what's left in that race, I don't think there's anything that can go up against her. And at 11-10, I think that's could call it a gift, but I think it potentially is when everything comes out and declarations come in. Odds on for me. Diupu, as Elle said, I mean, it's not the greatest of horses, but again, the renewal of this race is just, there's just sod all in the race that will go against him. He just wins. And then Gallopin de Champs, obviously, like we said. I just think that, again, he just wins his 3rd Gold Cup. So my Muggy of Mugsville, I think mine's Super Muggy just because it's only pays 17-1.
Yeah, I might get on both of those and see what happens.
I'm getting to get on L's after his.
I'm already on my one.
Yeah, good man.
He's a grand.
I think the Ballyburn one. I think the more I look at Ballyburn, he's in a few, but I just think the longer trip for him is just easy.
Perfect.
Right. Let's see. So how many weeks we got? 5 weeks.
5 weeks today.
And counting. All right. Right. Stewards Enquiry. Bing bong.
Bing
Stewards
bong.
Enquiry.
So what happens at the photo finish?
Stewards Enquiry.
Oh, you've got a Stewards Enquiry. What have we got?
Yeah, I'm not very happy about this at all. So I'm going to dig out the racing post here. they've been kind of sliding in my estimation for a while now, when they've been basically increasing the price of the paper. You know, every year at Cheltenham they chuck it up.
Thank you. I thought when I went on this app, I was like, hold on, I didn't realise I had to pay or like sign up.
Yeah, this is a new thing that happened last week, right? So they've been clearly a long-term strategy: get rid of the paper, everything digital, got to have an account. So I'm lucky, my dad does have an account, so I have it on the iPad, and you know, it's pretty much the same thing.
I hope you're not sharing passwords, though.
Got that. On cybersecurity corner.
Cybersecurity.
I didn't realise I called the help desk. But now, and they didn't, as far as I can tell, they didn't announce this. They just snuck it under everybody's eyes. I went to look at horses' form and went to flick back to look at maybe a year or two before, and we've got the screenshot here, and it's like, oh no, if you want to enjoy this, you have to sign up. And it also means you can't look at like entries and other features that were basically free on the website, the phone app. Because I used to think, why does anybody buy the paper? Because if you get the app on your phone, you've got all the form there for you, and you've got the race cards and stuff. So clearly, you know, I was a mug for thinking that, because their strategy all along has been, we'll lull everybody in, get everybody on the app, and then wham, we'll hit them with the initial, all right, you have to have an account, so then you have to subscribe to like marketing, and they've got your data, etc.
Yeah.
You can bet your bottom dollar that the next thing will be, once everybody's got an account, now you're going to have to, there'll be like a entry level payment just to get the basic features, then like a premium account service and all the rest of it. And I just think, I'm not happy with this, and they need calling out for it.
You've heard it here first on this pod. Racing Post will do subscription services, 100%. So at the moment, you can sign up. You don't need to pay anything. You just need to put in your email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have an account, essentially. So that.
And
so
a
now.
unique password that you don't share or have across other apps.
Special characters.
Special characters.
But so I will shout out a couple of other sites, sportinglife.com and At The Races, where you can get all of this stuff for free, as you should do. Cop on Racing Post.
Good recommendation there. Thanks for that. We'll maybe post the links
Yep.
below. Good. Right, we'll do a couple of questions, preview, and then we'll get out of here. Q&A. So we've had some pretty good questions come in. We've been trying to tackle one or two of these a week. I've picked a couple. This one, I think both of these are coming from Toby. Toby, big up Toby. Maybe we'll have him on the pod at some point. Interesting character. Is it worth looking at horses in the parade ring? And if so, what things are you looking at? We're looking to see. Duncan, should we let's start with you.
Yep. Okay.
What are you
So
looking
100%, it's worth looking at horses in the parade ring. I would probably say that for maybe horses that are new to racing, so they're in novice company, so it's either the first run, second run maybe, it's even more vital that you go and look at them, just because, one, you want to see kind of what their I guess their what's the word? Their attitude is in, like, as they're walking around the parade ring. Are they buzzy? Are they on their toes? Are they calm, relaxed? Ideally, you obviously want to see a horse that's pretty calm and relaxed. You don't want one that's going absolutely bloody mental around there, and just because, you know, it's obviously not going to work out potentially in the race. The coat, I think, is another thing.
Better than going mental? Because I would have thought, well, if they're going mental, they're like, oh, they've got a bit of energy.
They're using up energy potentially as well. So they're using up energy. You know, I guess it's like, you know, if you see a more relaxed, calm horse in there, you're going to think, okay, right, the horse knows what he's here to do. Let's let him just go out and do it. Yeah, exactly that.
Okay. It's not just looking into their eyes then.
Yeah, exactly. Then I would also say, like, looking at the coat maybe as well. So, I mean, if you have, like, especially in the flat as well, you have like summer coats and things like that on horses. So if a horse has got quite a shiny looking coat, normally means they're in good health, you'd expect. And some horses that can look like hair like mine, like absolutely shaggy all over the place, you're probably thinking, probably not necessarily in the rudest of health. So you might want to stay clear of that. And of course, as well, if you look like me and look like overweight, you can have a look at the horses and see, do they look overweight? Do they look fat, or do they look kind of stripped, kind of six packs at the ready kind of thing, ready to go?
Yeah, like me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Lean.
All right. Yeah, that's quite interesting. So you're looking at condition, you're looking at calmness. Okay. Yeah, that's good. What would you look at?
Yeah, I mean, I think Duncan's hit the key points, really. I'd always implore people, if you're at the races, take the time to go to the paddock. It's so important if you're looking to pick a horse. As Duncan said, you're looking at temperament, so you don't want a horse buzzing all over the place. Sometimes you'll see him jumping up and down, trying to kick the back legs away, pulling its head, trying to get rid of the stable ladder lass. Sweating is a big one. If a horse is sweating too much, that is a clear sign it's worked up. And if it's sweating that much in the parade ring, it's a good chance, as Duncan said, expending too much energy. It's just nervous energy, essentially. It's getting a bit too worked up in itself. And because you're talking about absolutely finely tuned athletes, that could lose 10% of performance, and that could make the difference in a race. I would also say you don't want a horse that's half asleep. I know that you say, well, you don't want it buzzy, but you don't want it calm. It's kind of, there is a happy medium for a horse maybe just on its toes, looking like it's switched on. Kind of maybe ears pricked, sort of looking like it knows it's game time, just bubbling under the surface without boiling over. You will see horses almost trudge around the parade ring. That might not be ready to show itself today, and definitely the fitness thing. You obviously don't want to see a complete rack of ribs and look like it's not been fed for 4 weeks, but usually an indication of a bit of rib showing means that they're as fit as they can be. So particularly at the start of the season, or if a horse has had a break, if you see a nice big belly on it, it probably needs a run or two to get into full fitness.
It's so relatable to cycling. For those who don't know, I do a lot of road cycling.
Do you?
I'm a cycling wanker. And there's been all these like old stories back in the day where like the old school way of training, like for like Tour de France, let's say, is like the trainer used to just grab you and be like, if they can find any fat, they're like, yeah, you need to lose some weight. And like they literally old school, like how much fat or how much like you can actually grab, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're fine, you literally just skin and bone. But then it's obviously you go too much the other way and you've lost all your power, you've lost all your form. So yeah, there is a happy medium. So quick question on the horses then, because sometimes I go there because I have no idea I haven't done any research or I haven't taken your tips. Would you go to validate what you've chosen, or would it put you off? Say if you've like spent ages, washing this pod, doing your research, and then you go there and they're like sweating, or they're super docile, they look like half dead. Would you change your tip?
I would say sometimes it's feel like to do it if there's like a big field and I haven't got an opinion on the race, but I do fancy a little flutter. I would just go, do you know what, let me just pick it just based on what I can see in front of me. I think sometimes the danger is confirmation bias. So if you've already made your mind up, you're almost looking for the positive signs in what you can see in the parade ring. I'd say the best time to use it is like we've said before with the breaks and stuff, or if a horse, you're trying to look to see if a horse is ready to go today, maybe have a couple that you've had on a short list and then use the parade ring to maybe sway you one way or the other. But I wouldn't put all of my eggs in that basket and say I'll disregard everything I've researched, because let's be honest, we're not equestrian types, so we're not used to seeing horses every day, so something that might look off to us might actually be okay. So I would take it into consideration, but I certainly wouldn't make it the full package.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. All right, next question then. Are certain jockeys better with certain horses? I.e., would you always want the overall best jockey on any horse? Now, you spoke about Django Bay, for example. You said the jockey actually messed up that race, so you probably wouldn't favour that jockey going forward. So, Duncan, maybe start with your thoughts on there.
Yeah, I mean, there are some jockeys that I just think are better than others. I mean, you go back a few years to when AP McCoy was riding, so he's widely known as like the best jumps jockey that's ever been. I'd say you could get him on any kind of horse. You could probably get him on a rocking horse and he'd still get it home. He was unbelievable. But there's just some jockeys like nowadays. If you're a stable jockey, like Nico is for Nicky Henderson, he obviously rides some of the best horses that there are around. They are, he will get on well with them because he rides them so often and things, and they will get on board. So they probably build up a relationship between the horse and jockey. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think there is something in that in terms of the connection they obviously have. They understand how the horse's temperament is, what they're like, what they don't like, that kind of thing. So it can help. But I mean, there are some jockeys, like I say, Nico de Boinville being the stable jockey for Nicky Henderson, I think there's better jockeys out there that they could have, and I'm baffled as to why they don't have like a Sean Bowen or someone there who's younger. I think he's just genuinely like he can get a horse home. Whether Nico, as Elliot said, he's got the noodle arms, so I think he just struggles. He just struggles in that. If you've got him in a duel coming up the straight between him and a Sean Bowen or a Harry Cobden, I'm going to back the other two, just because from an ability wise they're going to be better jockeys than he will to get a horse home.
All right, so it's definitely on the criteria then. Or would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd probably just pick up on the theme of Duncan's example with AP McCoy. Whenever I get asked this question, I always think of AP McCoy and Ruby Walsh at the time in the noughties were kind of the top two in their sport, really. And you would think that because AP McCoy's 20-time champion jockey, putting him on anything means you're good as gold. But one thing I noticed to my detriment, when Ruby was injured, he had a lot of bad injuries, but a few times he was injured and AP McCoy actually took over on some key horses like Denman and particularly Quarto Star. I'll never forget McCoy riding Quarto Star in a King George when Long Run beat him, and the horse just didn't seem to enjoy him at all, given that he was one of the best horses in training, because their styles are quite different. So, for example, Ruby Walsh was very sympathetic, very quiet on a horse, would let the horse kind of do the talking, where AP McCoy was a lot more physical. So as Duncan said, he could get really average horses home that probably didn't deserve to win. And I would say someone like Tom Marquand on the flat is very similar. But some horses don't want all that contact and aggression. They want to feel like they're in control of the race themselves, and that the jockey's sort of just doing a bit of steering almost. So actually that's an example I would say, is that it doesn't always prove to have what's deemed to be the best. Yeah. Because there are, I'd say for 90% of horses, doesn't matter probably, but there are certain horses that are quirky, take a bit of knowing, so stable jockeys can help. And it doesn't always prove to be the case just to have the best on.
So looking at if that horse has raced and won a few times on the same jockey, then that's probably a good sign that jockey and that horse get on quite well. Yeah. Another rabbit hole to get into. Love it. Right, let's do preview coming up then. Let's do quick fire and then let's get out of here. So we've got 3 races, all at Newbury. Let's start with William Hill.
Yeah, so this confused me a little bit when I was looking at the races, because this was always Betfair Hurdle Day or Betfair Day at Newbury. Everything was sponsored by them. Don't know when they lost the sponsorship, but now William Hill seemingly have taken over. So all the race names have changed kind of a bit. But the first 2 races we'll look at do have actual registered names. So this first race is called the Denman Chase. Used to be called the Aon Chase. So it's basically a mini Gold Cup trial. So it's over 3 miles for open horses, and it's a grade 2. But my God, that field is so poor. If I jokingly was thinking if this was a field in Ireland, it wouldn't even be a grade 2 race. It wouldn't even be a graded race. It's, you've got Brave Man's Game at the top, and we talked about windy horses last week. He's as windy as they come. I think he's had at least 3 wind operations. Basically, slagging, but he was a good horse a couple of seasons ago. Obviously a King George winner, and basically ran the race of his life when Gallopin Deschamps won his first Gold Cup in 23. And he went out on a shield that day, and I just think the horse has never recovered from that. He came back the following season, last season, and just got put in his place by average horses. Similar thing this season. He was kind of laboured in the King George. Nichols was given out about the jockey, funnily enough, going off too hard. And he's 2-1 favourite, and I just think, how can he be 2-1 favourite? And it just kind of shows you how bad the race is. You've got Jello in there at second. Now, he's also in the other race that we'll talk about, the Game Spirit, but he's 3-1 for this, so you kind of assume he's going here. But I was at Windsor the day that Protectorate absolutely kicked him out of the way, and he looked all at sea. He is a progressive horse, and he's young enough at 7 to think maybe he can come back from that. But that was only a couple of weeks ago, and just short of 3 weeks ago. And I'd say I wouldn't be sort of fancying him either. And then you kind of think, well, what else is there in this race? And the bottom half, so kind of from Galore downwards, you've got handicappers at a push and don't deserve to be going close in a grade 2. The Patron, for me, there's no chance he'll stay the trip. And then I'm thinking, what on earth would I recommend here? And I can't believe I might even tentatively put Hitman up as a selection. He has run in this race a couple of times. He looks the most frustrating horse because he travels there comfortably as anything. When it comes to the key part of the race, he just absolutely finds nothing off the bridle. And he's never actually won over 3 miles. But he did run quite an encouraging run last time at Ascot in a good handicap. And Paul Nicholls has got 2 in here, obviously Brave Man's Game being the other one. If he declares both, and for some mad reason Harry Cobden decides to ride Hitman, I would have quite a bit of confidence that he's made the right choice. But it's a poor race, and I can see none of them winning it, if I'm honest.
There's your tips. I can see none of them winning it. Duncan, you had maybe another one on that one?
No, for me, I think, as El said, Brave Man's Game, baffled, 2-1, no chance.
Brave Man's gone at the game, he should be good.
Yeah, exactly that. He said about 3 wind ups. I think after the second one, you get one for free, kind of thing. I'd say Hitman each way at 5-1. I think is the bet. of them. I don't see anything else. And like I say, I was quite surprised how well he ran last time at Ascot. I'm just having a look at the trip. So that was over 2 mile 5. So he came second to Shishkin last year in this, and he went down by 4.5 lengths. I still think he'd be the pick for me.
Me too.
All right. So that's not really exciting. It really riled me up for the weekend there. Let's go on to the next one. Game Spirit Chase at Newbury as well.
Yeah, well, we've been banging on about Sergino pretty much as this podcast started. He looks like the second coming.
All around Sergino.
But this is quite an interesting move by Nicky Henderson, not unprecedented, but this is a grade 2, what's called for open company, which means that it's not restricted just to novices. So Sergino is a novice over fences. In fact, he's only ever had one start over fences, which was at Christmas, where he was really impressive, kicking away Ballyburn, who obviously then gone and won very impressively at the weekend. So to put him into open company on his second start over fences is definitely a fair ask, because he has the option to run at Warwick in a novice race, which is called the Kingmaker, also a grade 2 over 2 miles, which would be, in theory, an easier test for him because he'd be racing against other novices. But I know Nicky Henderson just absolutely loves Newbury, and he did the same thing with Altior and Sprinter Sakura in their novice season over fences. But the thing is different this time is that this is Sergino's only second start over fences. Sprinter Sakura was having his third start over fences and Altior his fourth. So, you know, on just his second start to win a grade 2 open to all horses, that is quite a challenge. And, it isn't a complete no-hoper field. So, really, if he comes through this and wins, which I do expect him to, he's looked unbeatable so far in his career, he basically will become probably one of the shortest price favourites for the Cheltenham Festival. In terms of any dangers, I mean, it'd be good to see Matata in here because he was so impressive when he won at Windsor over the Winter Williams weekend, and he's an absolute mad front runner, so he could go off like the clappers, but that'll probably only set it up for Sergino. And I think if there were 3 places in this, I wouldn't discount JPR1. He's still a little bit unexposed, but you're only going to get 2 places, and he's 20 to 1, so, I struggle to see anything getting into this race other than Sergino. Edwardstone won it last year, but he's an 11-year-old now, and he's definitely on the downgrades. To be honest, I wouldn't be really having a bet, but I would just be watching with interest, hoping Sergino cements his position at the top of the Arkle market and puts in a good round of jumping.
Ready for Cheltenham.
Indeed.
All right, last one then, handicap hurdle.
Tell her the name for John Joe is the one I've gone with. He's only had one run this season. He's stepping back in grade. He was in a grade 1, fighting 5th in Newcastle at the end of November, and ran against, funnily enough, Sergino in that. I think the step back in grade is good, and especially after a long break. He's had a bit of a break between that run and this run, but hopefully should be a bit fitter for that. He looks like, based on the form, that he would probably prefer a bit better ground. But having spoken to Elle before this, I think the weather doesn't look particularly too bad at Newbury until the actual day. So hopefully the ground will improve from the soft that it's currently classified as, and maybe go good to soft. But yeah, that would be my pick. I think he's 10 to 1 potentially. So I would that would be who I back each way.
Okay.
Again, this has confused me because this used to be the Tote Gold Trophy, but then it was the Betfair Hurdle for ages. Now it's William Hill just called it the William Hill Handicap Hurdle, but there's another race earlier on the card also called the William Hill Handicap Hurdle. So they've completely not delivered on the market in front to sell this race.
I've tried to simplify the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's always a good race. It's a massively frantically run handicap hurdle over 2 miles. Iberico Lord, I was at Newbury last year and backed him when he won, and he won quite well, but he's £13 high this time, so I wouldn't fancy him. Joyeuse is probably one of the ones that's going to go off favourite in the same colours, but our good old friend Nico de Boinville absolutely butchered this horse's last run at Cheltenham. When it came there travelling, managed to find every bit of trouble he could and flew home, but she's only had a few starts, and I would be a little bit sceptical about taking a short price about a horse that's so inexperienced, because she's going to be racing against old seasoned handicappers. So I've tried to find a couple each way. The one I'm probably strongest on is Alan King's horse Favour and Fortune. He actually ran in the Supreme Novices Hurdle last year, finished 6th, beaten about 9.5 lengths, wasn't disgraced. Then he went out into the Scottish Champion Hurdle next time on his last start last season at Ayr. He won that off a mark of 138 quite comfortably, and he's only £2 higher here. He's had a prep run at Ascot, which, was clearly a bit of a tee-up job. This race is worth a good few quid. It's nearly 90 grand to the winner, so you can see why they wouldn't want to win that race and have him cherry right for this. And he's only £2 higher than that big win at Ayr last season. Favour of Fortune, currently 10 to 1. I'd be getting stuck into that each way. And then I thought I'd take an absolute swinger at one at a mad price. We've spoke about Evan Williams on this podcast for messing around with horses and then teeing them up for a bigger race. It looks like a similar thing here with Manila Missile. He is a point winner. He's won over 2.5 miles as a novice at Cheltenham, and his pedigree screams stamina, and this is the minimum trip of 2 miles. So you think you probably don't want a stamina horse, but they often go, like I said, up front in this race. And if they burn off too much in the early stages, it could set it up for something closing from the back. And he's another one that's had just one start this season. So he ran at Windsor when I was there, and was sort of messed around with at the back, never really given a hard race. And he's very unexposed in handicaps. So Manila Missile is the other one at 33 to 1. And you can put both of them in a forecast if you wanted to.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I think that's everything. That's a wrap. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Tailed Off. Quite a detailed one today on the reviews and previews, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you like it, all we ask is just share. Share with your friends, share with your family, and let us know if you've got any questions. So message us on tailedoffpod@gmail.com and also on the socials, so Instagram, YouTube, and we're back on X. We're back.
Yeah, man.
Well,
Tailed Off Pod 2.
Tailed Off Pod 2, not the same ring, but you can find us on X as well. And yes, until next time, have fun out there. Race smart, race hard, and try not to be tailed off. Cheers.
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 Position. Annie Power at the last flies down. Annie Power has gone but in front of the last length. Melanie Light
By the first time, they're running up towards the finish, and he's mistaken the winning post. He's mistaken the winning post completely, Roger Lockwood, and Hoyt Fire.
From Archibald, Hardy who's got defends his title, but Archibald will flatten out his Devon. Then in front, now White Knight is beginning to come. He's drifting off a true line. He hangs fire. Alice must be home. Cyril is a gun winner with his fourth Betfair Chase.